Okay, great. So we'll just have that on. Um, Sorry, I lost my train of thought now.
I know I interrupted you.
No, it's okay. Um, but so the AI companion, that's what I wanted to ask you. How did you do that? And did you do it
It's
here?
it's a Zoom feature. There's two AI functionalities in Zoom. They
Mhm.
both need to be enabled or turned on in the settings.
Okay,
One is if someone's late to a meeting, they can go back and say, "What did I miss?" Okay, and that's the
perfect.
AI companion. The summary is actually going to email a summary of the meeting afterwards to you or to whoever is coordinating it, and then they can distribute that as a meeting summary if they choose. But they're both built into Zoom. You don't have to
Okay.
use some of those other fancy tools that are kind of cool. Your
Yeah.
avatar is watching, and the avatar talking to the avatar. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
that's a. I'm waiting for my students to be an avatar and my faculty to be an avatar, and have them interact directly. It's like, really, who's learning here? So,
That's great. Okay, and that's down here in the toolbar, the AI companion I see.
yep.
Um, okay, perfect. And you just make sure that they know when they,
And next to the AI companion, you might see start summary,
okay.
and
And that's how that works.
that's the email summary of the meeting and content.
Okay, so if I say I'm in a meeting and I start that, the summary's going to come directly to me.
It should come email directly to you.
Okay, great. Well, you learn something new every day. Thank
That's
you
why
so
we're
much,
here.
Dr. Dell. I appreciate that.
I'm happy to share.
Thank
That's
you.
my passion, right?
Yes. So yeah, so we just have everyone coming on at 10. I'll probably start about 9:59 just to let everyone on. At that point, I will just say, um, introduce myself, let everyone know about the polling questions, and that they need to answer them for CPE credit, and just kind of give my little spiel about that. And at the end, do you want me to say a few words about you? Usually I'll just say, and we have Dr. Scott Dell here, and I'm going to turn it over to him now, something
That's
like that. Or I'm happy to say a few words that you would like me to say, so you can just start going.
you can start whatever you feel comfortable with, but you can say, I brand under Dr. Scott.
Okay, Dr. Scott. Okay.
So Dr. Scott, even though his last name Dell, it's all about personal brand, and he is exhibiting that live and in person.
Okay,
Um, uh,
wonderful.
has presented to professional organizations, companies, and keynoted many an AI session for a variety of organizations.
Okay, let me just get my,
I'm gonna send you a link to my
okay,
tiny URL it has a summary that'll actually
great,
give you some insights. I'm gonna pop that in the chat right now, and
perfect,
you can take a look at that if you like. Uh,
perfect.
and that will give you some insights as to there's some summaries in there. Whatever you want to extract, I trust your judgment.
Okay,
You can say anything, you can say nothing, you can just say, Scott, take it away, and we're good. Or you can
okay,
say, by the way, Wharton MD, he's a native Bostonian, former member of the Mass Society of
okay,
CPAs, Boston University graduate, EY alum for the Boston EY office. So those are some of the
okay.
things that might be pertinent to our crowd.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Now, are you
Okay,
seeing? Okay, I've got the chat open. Are you seeing right now on screen the full QR code, or is it blocked out?
I see the full QR code.
Perfect. Okay, so you're not getting anything blocked out from when I go slide to slide. If you got full picture, good. So I keep the chat open just so I can monitor as well to see
Yep,
what folks have to say. And
perfect.
I'm going
That's
to be asking in the chat, comfort level A to E. Pop in the chat. This is about you. And I've got about 4 or 5 polling questions myself. So
okay,
and I've got some
perfect.
summaries, some videos, some show and tell. Um, and basically you alone.
Excellent. Do you have anything on here that I can like copy and paste for that? For what you had asked as far as like an intro that you already have?
If you go
Sure.
into that document, I've got a short version a medium version, a long version. You can take the short version if you want, just cut and paste if you like.
Okay, let me do that now. Perfect. Okay, there we go. Thank you. Had a little trouble getting that open for some reason. I don't know why. Maybe because I have 14 screens up in front of me.
Is that all? You're slacking.
I know, right? Oh, okay. Great. Let's do this. Okay. All right, perfect. So are there any questions that you have for me while I'm getting this ready? Anything that I can answer for you or anything about how this session's gonna
Anything, I
go?
mean, I've been enhanced, the title was ChatGPT friend or foe. I've added RPA, added data analytics, so just some token stuff, not major, and we'll get
Okay.
into that. I guess somebody wants to come in. Do you start them at 10 or do you let them in early?
No, we don't let them in until for another 10 minutes or so.
Okay. So
Yeah, unless it's you know, the
somebody you know.
yeah, unless it's the I'm waiting for someone from Mass CPA to log on. So if I see her, I'll probably let her on early. If Kristen from Fidelity wants to get on early, but normally the participants in the session, we do not we wait until the meeting starts for everyone.
I
Perfect.
wonder if you want to start out with some music, but we can do that. That's an option too.
That's great.
Okay,
All
I
right.
sometimes turn on Spotify and say, "Hey, let's play."
I think this is going to be a great session.
Thank you.
Um,
No,
it's
no
really
pressure. Thanks a lot. Yeah.
no, but it's such an interesting topic, and it's literally the hottest topic I think in every office right now is AI.
Yeah.
And what are you going to use, and which one to use, and what does it do, and how do you find the one that you want to do what you want? Because they do so many things. So it's definitely we're talking about it, like I said, in the society, and my husband, he's got stuff going on with AI. I just love it. I use it all the time.
It's cool stuff. And by
It's
the way,
really
input is welcome. And if you have any war stories or anything else,
okay.
would love to have the input. May I ask what your husband does with it, or what's he using it for?
My husband,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. He works for a company. It's called Abcam, and they do all scientific things. I mean, it's like it's kind of over my head, but he's on the technical side, so they use it to kind of incorporate, um I think all the things that he would like to say but doesn't really know, so kind of puts in the layman's terms to make himself, like
Tell me like a third grader. Yeah, exactly.
exactly. Well, there's a lot of I think things there that is helpful for. My son, on the other hand, used it. He's a senior in high school, and he got detention for that. So
Really?
yeah,
What school may I ask? What's this
it's
one?
the Foxborough Regional
Okay,
Charter School in Foxborough.
gotcha.
Yeah, they felt that it was not his work. And
The
I
Patriots can use it. Why can't our students in Foxborough?
exactly. It was too much. He
They're
should
going
have
to be at a disadvantage if they're banning it. That scares me.
isn't that scary? I was like, but you put on all the information. And he's like, I know, but they wanted the information to come from me, not from AI. And I think they did say that initially, and I think he probably didn't follow the teachers. Yeah. But
Forgiveness versus permission. We always have crossed
yeah,
that line, right?
exactly. But he had to do it all over again. He had to do the paper all over again. It was really, yeah,
Wow. So
yeah.
what's he going to be doing next year? Any idea?
He is going to Framingham State next year.
Cool.
He's going to stay here for a year, and then he really, really wants to go to UW. And so he's just pulling up his grades, which is why I think he wanted to
Wait,
use
we say
the
UW as University of Wisconsin?
UW is University of Washington. I'm sorry.
Washington. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
I was 30 years in Wisconsin. So you say UW or UW.
Oh, that's
Uh, my,
my
my, my doctorate's from University of Wisconsin.
okay. Yeah, no, UW because it's W, you
Yeah.
know. and they call it the dub. It doesn't make sense to me either. I had to
He
ask,
wants to get as far away as he can from Boston, doesn't he?
he really does. He really does. So he's banking that his grades are A+ this year. He's going to put in a lot of work. So
Cool.
he could have gone to some other places, but he really just wanted to kind of, if he couldn't go where he really wanted to go, he's going to do this, pull up his grades and go where he
What's
wants
he
to
want
go.
to study?
He wants to study food and nutrition with a minor in kinesi. Oh, I'm sorry, kinesiology.
Kinesthesiology.
Thank you. Yes.
Welcome.
Yes. He wants to just kind of be an all-around food, nutrition, and
Health.
muscle health wellness
Nice.
guru.
Actually,
Yeah,
Washington State's a good place for that.
it is. Yeah, they have one of the best programs.
Yeah.
And Framingham State also has a really good food and nutrition program, which is
Oh,
why he's, yeah,
nice.
yeah. So
And
I'm excited. I'm happy. As long as they're doing what makes them happy. I mean, what else can we ask for?
pursue their passions. By
Exactly.
the way, living your dream career, that's chapter one. What is your
I'm,
why?
yeah,
Okay, that's you pursue your passions. A lot of people say, yeah, but you're not going to like accounting. How can you like accounting? Actually, you can love accounting.
exactly.
Exactly.
If
So
you have a mind for it and it's something that you're interested in, I mean, it's just, I feel like there's so many kids that, oh, counting's boring. I don't want to sit behind a chair all day and punch numbers. It's
and you don't have to be good at math. That is the
no,
real shocker for so many
yeah,
kids.
so much more to it than that. I just
By
want,
the way, do any of these sometimes result in follow-up workshops or other sessions? Or is it
yes,
okay? Because the thought
absolutely.
is the prompt engineering, I've done workshop. That tiny URL I sent you, I've got
Hmm.
3 curriculums.
Okay,
We're not going to get a lot deep into prompting today, but we're
okay.
going to see it live in action. And I may have above before. So
We can definitely, I'm just trying to find I'm sorry.
so
I'm trying to find your little blurb in there.
if you scroll down, you
There
see
it is.
short
There it is.
short bio, longer bio.
I found it. Throughout this immersive session, Dr. Scott will share his expertise and enthusiasm. Um, okay.
Yeah, take a few minutes. No rush.
I'm so sorry. I just want to make sure I have something here to say. I just realized what time it was. Um,
5 minute clock just flashed at me.
I know, right? Okay, let's just do this. Instead of me combing through this, good morning, everyone. Okay. Just give me like 2 sentences. Can
Uh,
you give me, yeah,
uh, Dr. Scott not only is a Big Four alum, CPA in 2 states, and recently minted doctor in 2019.
and
By the
two,
way, not that kind of doctor, doctor in business.
recently
He also
minted.
is a keynote presenter and
Mhm.
expert in artificial intelligence and use of technologies. He's here to share insights and hopefully inspire your use and effectiveness in applying the latest and greatest.
I'm not a fast typer.
And Dr. Scott, I know you brand under Dr. Scott. We're in the
Yeah,
age of personal branding. So Dr. Scott, the floor is
Dr.
yours.
Scott. Perfect. Okay. Okay. I didn't get all of that. Not only is Dr. Scott a Big Four alum, CPA in 2 states, and recently minted doctor, he is a keynote
By the way, in
speaker.
2019, I like adding that because I usually say, and not the oldest guy to graduate my class. But
Recently minted doctor in 2019. Okay. Okay.
and by the way, your full name is?
Liz Hebner. Yes. I'm the business development representative here at Mass CPAs.
By the way, if you ever need somebody live, my brother's still in Boston. I have
Oh,
cousins in
great.
Boston. I make it back when I can.
Awesome. Okay. He is a keynote speaker
on artificial intelligence and the latest technologies.
Okay, I'm gonna leave it at that, and latest technology, just in the interest of time. Usually we try to do this beforehand,
Okay.
but now we know. So next time you speak, we'll just make sure we have this up front and latest technology. Okay.
Technologies. Whoa.
Technologies. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Perfect. Okay.
He's
Uh,
also a ChatGPT fan and is
perfect.
excited to share insights.
Perfect. Okay.
2-minute warning, I guess. That works for football. May as well work for our sessions too.
Yeah.
It doesn't work in college football, but pro ball would.
Okay. He is excited to share insight, and I'm just gonna, okay, perfect. This is good. We'll figure this out. It'll happen. Usually I do my best work under pressure. Okay, let's get this rolling now. And okay, so we have 5 people in the waiting room. 8. Okay, perfect. I'm gonna start to let everyone in since it's 9:59. Are you okay with that?
Rock
Okay,
and
great.
roll.
Thank you.
Let's make it happen.
All righty.
Even classic rock and roll.
Yeah. Welcome, everyone. Welcome. Good morning.
Greetings. Oh, but we need some cameras. We need to turn some cameras on.
Good morning.
Thank you, Samantha. Appreciate that. Ooh, I
Hello.
can tell you guys work together.
All right, we're just going to give it another minute or so, and we'll go ahead and get started. Um, let's see. Okay. Just going to give everyone a minute to get on.
Yep. You have time.
Yep, we are 10 o'clock right now. So let's get people
Oh, and I
in.
really do love those cameras. I would like to see faces, expressions, and it also makes sure that you're really watching. So if you're able to turn those on, that is much appreciated. Don't have to, but would be appreciated.
Well, I am going to go ahead and just get started with some introductions. My name is Liz Hebner. I am the Business Development Representative Specialist here at the Mass Society of CPAs. And let's see, just admitting everyone. I just have a few housekeeping notes before we turn it over to Dr. Scott. I wanted to let everyone know about CPE. I know you guys have done this before, but the CPE credit is awarded for the time that you're actively participating. So I'm launching 4 polling questions per hour. And if you could answer those, that would be great. They pop up sometimes behind other windows. They don't make any sounds. So if you could kind of keep an eye out for them, that would be great. It's how we track your attendance, and it's how we deliver your CPE credits. So let me know if you have any issues with the polling questions, and I will be happy um, to look into it. Additionally, I'm going to ask that you put all of your questions in the chat box today. Dr. Scott is going to take questions hopefully as they come. So if you can just get those all in the chat box, he will go ahead and answer them as he can. And so lastly, at the end of the seminar today, you're going to get a survey link. And if you could just go ahead and fill that out, we would really appreciate it. Your feedback is really important to us. So today we have Dr. Scott here. He is not only He is not only an alum of the Big Four. He I'm sorry, I totally screwed that up. I'm so sorry, everyone.
No,
Dr. Scott and I started to do this before, but Dr. Scott is here to talk about AI, accountant's friend or foe, ChatGPT. We're excited to have him here. He's going to go ahead and say a few words about himself, and we're excited for him to share his insights with you. And thank you, Dr. Scott. Here you are.
Liz, thank you very much. Excited to be here. I've been looking forward to this. I'm a native Bostonian myself and have worked for UI Boston for a spell, BU alum as well, but I'll get some more details. You'll find out enough about me. But I first really want to let you know where you're at. You're in the right place if you're here for the Fidelity Investments Workshop with the Mass Society. We're going to be spending the next 2 hours not only AI and ChatGPT, but some other tools as well. When I had a pre-meeting, we discussed things like robotic process automation, RPA, personal identifiable information, PII. We'll talk more about that. I've got an agenda that I'll show you momentarily. I'm going to point out two things on this screen to your attention. The first is there's a QR code and a tiny URL. I'll call that one. This presentation in full is available to you through that QR code, or if you go to tiny URL, Fidelity AI Workshop, you'll have this full presentation, so you don't have to make notes like a mad dog and go crazy trying to write things down. Also, my LinkedIn address is there. I did write a book on LinkedIn. I'm a LinkedIn fan. I would welcome the opportunity to connect and interact. And as follow-up to questions, even better than an email address, connecting on LinkedIn is pretty powerful, a great tool. But this seminar is about you. So I'm going to ask the first question. Could you please, in the chat, I want to gauge your experience. And please put in an A, B, C, D, E, or all the above. What your comfort level is with artificial intelligence. Some of you, I know there was a previous seminar. I know that you have some exposure to it. I'm going to find out if Fidelity bans it, like most banks do, internal use. So we got a couple of regulars, mostly heard of it, but not real active users. Used it a few times. Thank you so much for the feedback. I appreciate that. Very enlightening. So the majority seem to be and have heard of it, but not used it. But we've got a spattering. I didn't see any experts yet or power. Oh, there we go. Thank you, Jay. Glad to have you aboard. I also want to emphasize, if you have questions as we go, please do put them in the chat. I don't want to wait till the end and try to queue up all the questions and try to get all the answers going. But if we're moving along and you say, well, hold on, Dr. Scott, I'm not sure what that meant, or I'm trying to do this, please do feel free. It's a little cartoon here. You can probably get the gist of what we're talking about with AI. What will the impact of ChatGPT be on our business? And you can probably read this as well as I can. Well, we don't know. How much of it was called hallucinating, it makes it up. Will it take away our jobs, or might it enhance our jobs? We'll talk about that. Security risks, that personal identifiable information, never put that stuff in there. It could damage our reputation. It could really get us in the marketplace in a bad way. What do we know for sure? Only that we want to adopt it everywhere as fast as we can. And the key here is it is changing very, very fast. And we need to adapt. When do you hop on? Some people say, well, let's let it settle down a little bit. Maybe I'll come in and talk about it some more. I'll learn about it later when it settles. It is accelerating so fast. You can't really jump in at that point in time. So let me go ahead and continue. I've got a couple of predictions and a couple of show and tells before we get to the agenda. But we'll start with a prediction. Soon you, students, colleagues, professionals, will have your own PVA, personal virtual assistant. It'll be like an Alexa or a Hey Google on steroids. As a matter of fact, Apple GPT is coming out. They're going to probably announce it in June at their big annual meeting, but they're trying to make their Siri very interactive. Hi, I need to get a haircut next Tuesday. I'm flying out to Columbus. What's the best fare that gets me there by 2 p.m.? You can actually ask those questions right now through GPT-4, which has Expedia integrated with it, and it can make plane reservations. It can do hair appointments. It can do other scheduling. I've got a scheduling conflict. I've got 3 things going on. What do you suggest? I move things around, and can you go ahead and send out the emails and communications? This is your personal virtual assistant that's going to know you probably better than you know yourself. I sometimes joke that my Calendly schedule knows my schedule better than I know my schedule. But there are some tools. And by the way, again, you have access to this full presentation. I have lots of links, lots of URLs, so you don't have to go copying them all down. The summary that I liked from a quote by Sam Altman, who was a co-founder of OpenAI, and he's the face of AI and the face of ChatGPT 3.5 and GPT-4. We will all have superpowers on demand. We will have the access to systems. We will be able to ask questions, get answers, and have a dialogue. And it's a really powerful offering. And when I say dialogue, this is not a Google on steroids. I used to call ChatGPT a Google on steroids. It is so much. Google is a one-way communication. You ask it a question, it gives you a host of alternative answers, resources, tools that you can research. The tools are cool, but it makes you do a lot more work. And Google is a spray and pray. It prints it out, it gives you the resources and forgets what you typed. Where you are having a conversation with AI. You're saying, hi, AI, tell me about this. And it gives you 5 things. On number 2, could you tell me more about that? Could you prepare a blog post regarding topic number 3? You can ask it and it refers back hundreds of pages worth with the latest and greatest. So we're going to get a bunch of background, and again, I'll get the agenda in a minute. But I want to do some show and tell first. I've got some power users and some moderate users, so I want to give you enough, if you're a power user that says, I got some value here. I also don't want to scare away the newer users saying, this is overwhelming, it does so much. But I want to give you some background. We'll start with AI evolution. It's been around for over 60 years. Obviously not in the current form. It has evolved, computing power is accelerated, computer capacity is accelerated. It is amazing where it's gone. But AI, and you can again look at these slides later, I'm not going to read the slides, AI into machine learning into deep learning, and finally GAI, generative artificial intelligence. By the way, not AGI. AGI, not adjusted gross income, but AGI is also a artificial general intelligence where the computer thinks. And by the way, I hate to anthropomorphize these computers. They're not thinking, they're computer algorithms, they're programming, but I'll use some of the human terminology to go with that. They do think. And there's a polling question, by the way. Are you still watching? I hope you're still watching. And I'm going to go ahead and end the poll momentarily. We've got about 100% answers. Cool. So you're here. And then I'm going to close that out here. So if we're looking at generative AI, artificial general intelligence will say, you know what? I'm exhibiting symptoms and have been diagnosed with lung cancer. What do I do? They'll say, okay, here's the regimen, here's the radiation, here's the medications, here's the chemo. It will think for you and propose solutions and come up with new therapies. It'll come up with new ideas. Here, you use this infusion, use this genetic matching, whatever it might be, it will create. We're far from AGI right now. Some people say we're pretty close. I think we're still 5 or 10 years out at least. But
no, no, we're not gonna touch Kika.
If you are,
No, we're not gonna touch my Kika. She's my baby girl.
Okay, so the evolution, the agenda we're headed on, and by the way, the QR code is here, as is the tiny URL in case you entered a little bit late. So we're going to do some introductions of what AI can do. Some video, some audio, some query stuff. I'll give you some of my background, I'll get a little more details. And then we'll have use cases in business, accounting, and finance. We'll get some ideas and specifics as to how you might be able to apply. When we had the pre-meeting about 2 weeks ago, I was asked, could you include include some things on RPA, robotic process automation, and possibly big data and data analytics. So I've got a couple of slides that include some reference materials. And again, you can do some additional research at your leisure to find more details. We're going to talk about fears and opportunities, because a lot of people think Skyrim, it's the end of the world. We know Terminator. Others are saying it is the greatest thing since sliced bread, more important than the invention of the wheel and the axle or of fire. And it's going to change exponentially life as we know it. And frankly, I'm a believer in the latter, but we'll talk more about that. We'll get to the art of prompting. And there's a term called prompt engineering. It's a $300,000 a year plus job if you want it, which will probably go away in the next 2 years because you can actually prompt the AI to prompt you. I'm trying to draw a picture to do this. Give me a prompt that DALL-E 3 can generate pictures, and you can do a 2-sentence prompt, and it will give you a 10-sentence prompt, pretty complete, that if you can edit you want, and it'll give you the pictures you want. So you can prompt it as you go, and it will create prompts for you. I've got 2 methodologies that I've developed. We'll talk about the R*Q method, and we'll get to that in a little bit. We have a whole host of reference materials. There are over 100 slides. I'm not going to review over 100 slides, but many of those slides are links to blogs, definitions, acronyms, and other reference materials that you might find useful in your own time. So we only have 2 hours, and I look forward to those 2 hours, but I want to make sure you have access to additional resources if you so choose. And if we have time, we'll go live. I will also say virtually all the images, except for the cartoon, and that was up front, and graphs and charts, were created with artificial intelligence. So you will see the jet right there. There's no copyright infringement problems. I didn't have to worry about going to Shutterstock and getting pictures and buying, paying. And it is advantageous to be able to have tools and resources. And frankly, I'm not going to pay $1,000 a year for Shutterstock or $100 a month or whatever else the costs are, but I will use AI. So I don't think I'm really robbing anybody of the tools, but it is an enhancement to what we can do. So we're going to start. I'm going to show you a video. And this video took about 3 minutes to create after I gave it a 3-minute prompt to create that video. It comes with closed captioning, comes with music, comes with people that look pretty real. So I'm going to go ahead and share with you that. I'm going to pop over here and bear with me for a moment as I move over to our video. So this is a video that was created prompting, and you'll see the title momentarily.
Picture this, a world where numbers tell a story, where financial figures paint a vivid image of a company's health, where you hold the keys to unlocking secrets hidden within balance sheets. Welcome to the thrilling world of accounting. In the heart of this universe, we find Dr. Scott, a seasoned accounting professional. His journey through the labyrinth of ledgers, balance sheets, and financial statements is nothing short of inspiring. With over 3 decades of experience under his belt.
All right, you don't need to hear more about that, but that just gives you a picture that you can have very realistic experiences that look like real people saying real things, and you can queue it up. You can do it multilingual. GPT-4 supports over 100 languages. And though that gives you a little intro that you can very quickly create a video, just think the cost to creating that video if I had to start from scratch, storyboard it, script it out, hire actors and actresses to maintain, and then record it, edit it, and go down the path. Okay? I'll just demonstrate this here and I talk about a video summary. There's a 2.5-hour video. A very, very good interview with Lex Friedman out of MIT and Sam Altman. But if you don't have 2.5 hours to watch a video, by the way, the video is here, it will summarize with a prompt and saying, summarize the video. It gave me 2 screens of data summarizing the video. This is 2.5 hours summarized on 10 bullet points. When I looked at those 10 bullet points, by the way, I did watch the whole video in a little bit of high speed. I did 1.5 speed, but there's 10 points that the video summarized based on the content on YouTube videos. So if you don't have time even to watch a movie, you can say, hey, tell me about this movie. Tell me about this video. Tell me about this interview. Tell me about this podcast. And you can summarize in glorious detail and get lots and lots of information to go with that. Here's another analysis. If you have a URL, we're going to talk about the date limitations of basically March of last year that the GPT-4 goes up to, and the previous year that GPT-3.5 goes up to. But if you want to access current URLs and current information, I will look and see that, oh, tell me about Sunoco. And the Sunoco summary, and actually I'm going to go over to, I to have a recording of that as well. This is using something called Web Pilot. This looked at the URL and summarized mission, vision, values, nature of industry, key accomplishments, overall company accomplishments, potential points to interject during an interview. Then I said, give me some more details. And it came down, strategic market initiative. So you're looking for a marketing position. This all came from the website on a single prompt. Think of the research you would have to do going through that website, analyzing all the data. And all I did here was a basically one sentence prompt. I'm interviewing with the company, analyze the mission, vision, values, key accomplishments, and customer needs, accomplishments that I can interject. They'll give me product lines and I can interject those as a conversation. I've heard about your sustainability efforts, whatever it might be. Those are highlights that you can use. And by the way, everything I'm doing here, you can do with GPT-4, not 3.5. ChatGPT 3.5 is a freebie. GPT-4 is $20 a month. But you can also do this with Claude, and you can do it with Jet, which is from Anthropic, and Gemini, which is from Alphabet or Google. And we'll talk more about some of the other players out there. Another Sam Altman quote. I'm going to sprinkle some of these. His quotes are more well-reputed than mine, I think. It's slow. It's buggy. Doesn't do a lot of things very well, but neither do the very earliest computers. And he's talking about the latest and greatest. He's talking about GPT-4. He's talking about the tool that has the most capacity, has the most responsiveness, and the most capable, and it's slow and buggy. And it's improving all the time. It does learn, by the way, and it learns from you. We'll talk more. Now, some of you, if you're a power user, you might have heard of something called plugins or add-ins, almost like your phone when you go into the phone store and say, hey, give me these apps. They discontinued those. As soon as GPTs were released the end of last year, these are custom made. You can make your own GPT. You get up to 20 resources, your own books, your own blogs, your own information, and it will first go to your books and your information when somebody goes into your GPT. And that GPT is accessible. That now Expedia is a GPT. There are other tools for YouTube video summarization, other tools for web access, other tools for Excel, other tools for programming. So those are all considered called GPTs now. Let me go into my own background. Did I hear a question or was that a cough? Probably a cough. Again, I've published a couple of books.
So Lisa, you have to do like
LinkedIn.
worry about measurements on those two. Please get to back.
Additionally,
Yes, I did.
Again, please mute if you are not, unless you're asking a question. I co-authored Living Your Dream Career in a workbook, and actually we piloted the course this past summer. It's an online course. If you have any career questions. Just some background, recently minted doctor, 2019, and I wasn't the oldest guy in my class. I had more hair than the oldest guy. Master's in education, Boston University undergrad, degree in accounting.
Laptops for you guys. Oh, good. So you don't have to worry about bringing your own.
Excuse me.
No.
Hello? Hi, can we have everyone in mute, please, unless you're speaking? That would be great. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. EY alum, also a Grant Thornton alum. I was EY Boston downtown. And I do a lot of stuff on AI, obviously. There's also a career capsule newsletter, tiny URL. You're welcome to subscribe. And if you're curious about some of the other seminars that are involved or engaged, here's one coming up this Monday. It's sponsored by the IMA Career Connection. I think there are actually over 2,000 folks registered right now. So if you're curious, if you want free access, you're not an IMA member, let me know. I can make sure you can have access. But it's coming up 2 o'clock Eastern this coming Monday. And then a tiny URL, CPE by Dr. Scott, just gives you some more potential types of information and sessions that might be available if you're at all curious. So let's talk about using AI, both in general use, in accounting and finance, and we'll get some more details on how people are using it now. So general use, we saw how it does company research when I prompted it for Sunoco. 20,000 plus employees, publicly traded company, hundreds of locations around the world. Cool for research. It again is a dialogue, and you ask questions, it'll spit out something, and you say, oh, by the way, can you do some more? And I've got some samples later on that we'll see of prompting and the flow. Springboard, it's a great idea generator, but it's only as good as what you ask. If you say, give me 20 names, and I did this with state societies, give me all the state societies, the CEO or executive directors, their email address, the URL, and the appropriate abbreviation. And I asked that very question. It gave me 50 plus names. Every one of those names was wrong. It hallucinated. I was looking for a publicly traded company board. I said, who are the members of the board of directors of XYZ company? Every name it gave me was wrong. Give me 25 books on this topic. 22 were excellent books. 3 books it made up. The technical term is hallucinations. Okay. And being able to use the technology, understand, and I'm going to say this probably twice. One is, if you're a professional, it'll 10x what you do. If you're a CPA doing taxes or audits, if you're a CFO analyzing financials or trying to do some research, you know when it's BSing you because you're in the field, you're a professional. If you're a novice, a student, or is someone who's kind of new to the field, it'll 2x or 3x what you do, but you don't know when it's lying, when it's making stuff up. Okay? So I've got a question in the chat. What was the technology breakthrough that pushed out the code used for computing hardware? The technology breakthrough actually was pretty much around AI has been around a long time, as I said, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. The 2010, 2015 timeframe, there were some major advancements in London, in England, and funny enough, Google and Alphabet just bought the company and said, great, we're going to buy you, and then we're going to enhance it and use it internally. Basically computing power. NVIDIA has a new 200 chip, which exponentially exceeds their 100 chip, which everybody's been scrambling to get because of the speed and capability. So it's processing speed, capacity, and it's learning exponentially as we grow. We're going to talk about the timeframes on some of this, and it's going to continue to accelerate, I suspect. So emails, I want to create an email. I'll change the tone. I'm a pretty straight, direct kind of guy. Can you soften my blow a little bit on this email? Can you make it a little more friendly? Can you be careful of humor? GPT is not real good on humor these days, but it's improving. But change the tone, change the content, make it sound like Dr. Seuss. That's one of my favorites when I go in and I'm trying to have a little fun, trying to get something across. Or insert emojis. I work a lot with students, and I send out emails. I'm going to have my AI insert. I used to do manually, but I have it insert the emojis throughout. The graduation cap and the praying hands and the check marks and whatever else it has to go with that, the calendars to go with that. It does a pretty good job. Social media post ideas and content. Again, the idea of creativity of AI is based on your creativity, but it will give you tens or hundreds or thousands of ideas, names, titles. I actually often like to use alliteration when I ask in a prompt saying, okay, give me the names, 5 words or less, and use alliteration for this particular topic. I'm trying to come up with a name for a session, a seminar, a blog post, a book title, an article title, whatever it might be. And yes, you have a poll question. I will let you see that. And I'm going to unblock it from my screen. Meeting tips, generate agendas, generate outlines, generate a schedule, give me a timetable. And you'll see I've generated a timetable. We'll see that later. Summarize PDFs. I don't have time to read this article. Just 20-page, 30-page, 40-page Forbes article. Summarize it for me. Well, wait a minute. That's kind of interesting. Maybe I will go read it now. Summarize these books. Summarize content. I will share a story, though, is I asked, in my classroom, I integrate AI a lot in my classes. I said, okay, tell me the name of a book you were reading in English, history, business, whatever it might. They gave me the name of a book. So I asked it to summarize. It summarized the book. The English, by the way, is impeccable. It says, this is a great story about a father-son and an apocalypse. They came through trials and tribulations together, and they learned so much from each other, and in the end, life was glorious. The only catch is, in the end, the dad died. So if someone had submitted a book review or report saying, this was a great story about a father-son experience that ended gloriously, it wasn't so glorious on the true ending. And anybody who had read the book would know that. Anybody who didn't, including whoever's submitting it for their review, would probably get caught doing that. All right. So we have create schedules, timetables, I mentioned, business planning, negotiating tips. By the way, it can do two sides of a story. You're trying to sell an idea to your boss. Say, here's my project. Here's what's going on. Here's what we're doing. What's the best way to sell it? What are ideas I can propose? Then you say, what kind of objections might my boss have? And then you ask, what kind of responses to those objections might be most effective in countering those objections? Great for sales tool. We're all in sales, by the way, whether we're accountants, whether we're salespeople. We all are selling ideas. So I'm selling you right now on the value and the tool that and how powerful it can be and how it can be used. So it is a dialogue. It is a conversation. Let's get to the specific accounting use cases. Okay. Recruiting staff. It can draft all kinds of job descriptions. It can draft all kinds of correspondence and communications, building websites, analyzing big data, audit programs, testing. You can ask it. I was trying to figure out an Excel formula saying, you know what, in Excel, when I take an average, it takes all the cells, empty cells or not, and I only need the cells with a value in them to be average, not the empty cells that go with that, or if it's a zero. It gave me the formula just like that. Tax strategies, projections. You can go to Edgar and any publicly traded company, get the financials, and ask it to analyze those financials for ratio analysis, for horizontal or trend analysis, for common size or vertical analysis. It will do the analysis. Now, it's not real good at math. It's not a spreadsheet. So you need to validate and verify all output. But if you look at a ballpark, I was generating some adjusting entries, and it was a year-end salary adjustment, and it pitched a $0 adjustment. I said, wait a minute, we got 2 weeks of employee wages in here. How could it be zero? And it apologized profusely. It said, I'm so sorry. Well, how about, let me correct that. And the second time around, we got the right answers. So again, if you're a professional, you know what you're doing. My students would have said, I don't need to make an adjustment. That's cool. And that would have been done. But the reality is adjustment needed to be made. And we as professionals know that. Here's some other resources. This was a tax table that I thought was pretty effective and pretty intriguing. That shows, it was Thomson Reuters that posted this, internal accounting and public accounting. And it says, what did people, tax research was number one. Compliance was on the tax department, on the internal accounting or back office functions, on the firm itself. Accounting, bookkeeping, tax return preparation, tax advisory service, tax return. So all of these, again, you can look at these at your leisure. I'm not expecting you to, I'm not going to summarize them all, obviously, nor do I expect you to be intimately familiar with all the actual usage, but I went ahead and came through with some of these and did a similar. Who's using it? Software engineering. It's great for programming, but some sites have banned the results because it sometimes makes mistakes and they don't want liability issues, and that's fair. Customer service, human resources, marketing, data entry, sales, finance. Those are all looking to hire folks with ChatGPT experience. You're saying, wait a minute, if they're banning it in the schools, be it in the colleges or in the high schools, and you graduate and you haven't used it, are you going to be at a disadvantage? Afraid so. And then adoption rate in different industries is here too. And then this one's interesting because it shows increases in use, and especially healthcare and science and tech. Also a rise in hospitality and education, communications, but manufacturing will take a big hit in terms of the change in the job market, transportation and storage. Although I think we still have a shortage of truck drivers, don't we? I don't know when that's going to abate, but I keep hearing every year all these self-driving trucks, which will happen, or maybe even just self-driving on the highways, but we have a shortage of a lot of things right now. You'll also notice that finance and insurance are on the job loss side of things. But I'm going to say AI is not going to take away your job. AI will enhance what you do and be able to let you do other things. A couple other things that will highlight some of the financial side of things. BCG, Boston Consulting Group, they have a pretty good table here. Finance applications that gives you the overlap and some things that it is doing, it is being used for, it is being in process. So again, this is a big overview of what this functionality is and tools. I'm going to interject about robotic process automation. And the question I will have is in the chat, have you used RPA before? And just put in used, heard of, or none for RPA in the chat, please. Used, heard of, none. So go ahead and interact a little bit. Okay, heard of it? None. If anybody can share if you're using it at Fidelity, that would be a warm welcome. Often these things get built into some of the tools. Okay, so most of you have heard of it. That's good. A lot of folks haven't. I know a lot of students haven't, but you will. It is powerful. It is basically can think of it like a big macro, like an Excel macro or Word macro. It will take all kinds of data, extract information, do repetitive tasks, move things around from a variety of sources on the web, on your internal reporting, on your internal tools, and perform whatever activities you want based on that. And it's no exaggeration that you can condense a 3-week closing into minutes with all those repetitive tasks that often need to get done. That does not eliminate the need to review from the human element to take a look, to examine, and to take a feel of it. But that's something that, just to make you aware, it is uber powerful in what it can do. And I just put some names out here. You might have heard of Microsoft's Power Automate. You might have heard of UiPath, Automation Anywhere. I'm a fan of Blue Prism and Power Automate myself, but there's a whole bunch of tools and more all the time. So there was a report put out in July last year from Gartner Group. And yeah, over a third market share, UiPath is pretty popular. Microsoft is never down for the count. I'm old school. I loved WordPerfect. And Microsoft Word came out. It was kludgy, bulky, and guess who's dominating now? Same thing. Lotus 1-2-3. Some of you probably have fond memories and maybe not so fond. And now there's Excel. When the first version of Excel Windows that I was teaching came out, it was also slow, buggy, and I say, how can anybody use this stuff? It has improved greatly. We'll talk about data visualization. Now, if we're looking at data tools, I say Tableau and Power BI is the new Excel. I expect my accounting students and graduates to have familiarity. I integrate Tableau into my basic financial accounting course, into my managerial accounting course, intermediate and advanced accounting courses. Those are things that Tableau and Power BI for data visualization, we're going to be evaluating. We want our folks to be able to understand, and there's so much data out there. How do we condense that data to make it practical? What are those heat maps? Chicago's this big, Boston's this big, New York's this big, and Los Angeles is that big. And then there's Shanghai is that big, and Paris is this big. And those heat maps will show you graphically, imaging, comparing, condensing gobs and gobs of data into something more digestible. Tableau, by the way, is owned by Salesforce, as you may be familiar. So the big three are the top three, but there are a bunch of Zoho is actually pretty popular as well. But Excel is a data visualization tool. So we can use it. And I have 2 other reference items down there, one from Forbes Advisor from this year, and then 11 tools and pros and cons that describes it. So again, we got some details going through. In the chat, most of you that have heard of it, if anybody has used it, be it AI, please type in whatever tool you might have used for AI, if it's ChatGPT or GPT-4 or Claude or Gemini or the old Bard or Grok from our friends at Twitter, X formerly known as Twitter. I have to keep saying that. If you have any tools that you've used, I'm going to put a plug in for something called u.com. If you've never, ever gone through and tried a different search engine besides Google, besides Bing, try u.com. Just go to u.com. It's an AI search engine that's kind of powerful, kind of cool. I had a couple articles here. I mentioned I've been published in A, B, and C journals. How well does it answer accounting assessment questions? AI and ethics. Ethics is a big issue. Not just copyright ethics, but ethical biases that go with AI. We'll talk more about that. The number 2 article, best article in IMA Strategic Finance, I co-authored with 3 colleagues, ChatGPT and AI and Accounting Education and Research. Again, these are the references are here, but it was a cool article and well received. Journal of Accountancy, can answer your client questions. So we were published, and again, those are for your reference. I don't want to go into too much detail other than making you aware that they're available for you as you scan through the presentation. So let's talk about AI. Most of you are fairly new to AI, so I think this is going to be a worthwhile session for you to take a look and understand how the technology, and I'm going to use the word thinks, but I'm better using the word how it works, how it processes. After all, it is a computer program. It is an algorithm. It is generating information based on your input, but it was trained based on the inputs of tens of thousands and is growing every day. So let's do a little more background. Released November 30th of 2022. Okay. Are you saying, wait a minute, that's less than a year and a half back. That's pretty recent, isn't it? It's very recent. And I will tell you, OpenAI did not expect the reception it got after being released. You'll see how many people adopted it pretty quick. GPT-4, the paid version, was introduced March 14th of 2023. And I put GPT-5 no rush. Everybody's saying it's coming in the summer. 6 months ago, they said it was 2-3 years away. So I'm guessing it'll come sooner than later. But what's the summary? People are scared. Others love it. You are right, everyone is using it, but it makes stuff up. It's lies. The technical term is hallucinations. It's almost like a game of telephone that your kids might play, or you might have played in first grade, and they say, hey, here's the message, pass it on. By the time it's a third person, it's garbled. By the time it's a 10th person, it has no resemblance of the original message. It makes things up as it goes. So it is hallucinating as it grows and goes. Going to turn academic briefly for a minute. You probably all heard of Moore's Law. Originally, Moore's Law was transistors double every year. Gordon Moore revised it to every 2 years and cut the cost in half. By the way, Moore's Law is at its peak. It's no longer doubling every 2 years in terms of capacity, chip capacity. But Sevilla, a guy out of Spain, came by and said, AI is doubling every 6 months. Or translated, you don't have to be an accountant or a mathematician, quadrupling every year. I talked a little bit earlier about how fast things are changing, how fast things are evolving. When do you hop on to the bandwagon? Yesterday. Okay. So this has been going on for the past decade, past 10 years, since that 2014, 2015 mark that we talked about earlier. And then Elon Musk came out this past year. He said, AI computer power is growing by a factor of 10 times, not double, every 6 months. Okay, Elon has a tendency to exaggerate sometimes, but he's a sharp guy. I'm not going to put anything past him. Basically close to, if it's 10 times in 6 months and then 10 times in another 6 months, again, that's a 100-time improvement in a year. And he said that at the Abundance Summit. For the next few years, it's going to be at that rapid pace. So I mentioned 2022 when ChatGPT was introduced. Look at the adaptation, the monthly active users, how many months it took to get to 100 million users. ChatGPT did it in 2 months. TikTok did it in 9 months. We're not going to talk about TikTok, a polite company. Instagram did it in 30 months. I had to modify this slide. The idea of threads, if you might have heard of it by Meta or Facebook friends, they were at 100 million in 5 days. And the way they did that is they have Instagram. Anybody who had Instagram went on Instagram, you automatically went into threads, and now you are a threads user. Congratulations. I don't know anybody who uses threads these days. Occasionally I bump into somebody, but very rarely. I have not been back on it. Baidu is a Chinese company. They have something similar in 6 months adaptation, but it is 2 months to 100 million users. It took 5 days to reach 1 million users. 5 days. ChatGPT to get to 1 million. That's pretty quick. I've got a Bill Gates quote here. We always overestimate the change in the next 2 years and underestimate the change that will occur in the next 10. Now, he did this back in 1996. So I went in and I took liberty of editing his quote. I said we overestimate the change in the next 6 months and underestimate the change that will occur in the next 2 years. I'll tell you, I'm a Star Trek geek, okay, a Star Trek fan from way back when. And I used to say, hey, computer, Scotty would be talking to the computer. I would say, we are about 5 years away from a microphone interacting with our computers. The catch is I've been saying that for about 30 years. And by the way, we're probably still 5 years away from interacting with our computers, although we're doing more and more of that now, because you're right, Alexa, Siri, hey, Google are letting us do that. But it is evolving faster and faster. It is changing. So we're going to overestimate the next year or two. It's going to cure cancer. It's going to cure the energy crisis. It's going to eliminate war and famine. But don't put it past you for the next 6 months. Maybe in 2 years, it will enhance energy. It will enhance the food chain, water supply, and our ability for literacy and for all kinds of things. So be aware that change is rapid pace. By the way, you probably heard Microsoft is looking into its own nuclear power plant because AI is consuming so much in the way of energy and resources. Amazon Web Services and the Amazon folks are saying, you know what, we're concerned about power consumption too, because they are using massive amounts of power. ChatGPT by the numbers. Okay, well, we'll get to a little bit more descriptive of ChatGPT, and then I'm going to do a brief break because I know we have 2 hours together. But generative pre-trained transformer, GPT, and we're talking about generative artificial intelligence. Again, not AGI, but GAI. Released in ChatGPT 3.5, but I have 2 things in red here. It used to be, you say, well, is ChatGPT and GPT-4 being updated constantly? Short answer is yes. Can it access current data on the web? Kind of. There are tools that allow you to do that, these GPTs that I was mentioned earlier, but the actual data set it's built on for 3.5 is current as January 2022. For GPT-4 is current as of April 23rd. I'm sorry, April 2023. To say, wait a minute, that's about a year ago. So if I said, what's a hot stock pick for today? It'll say, I don't have the information. I can get a hot stock pick for summer of 22 or the winter of 23 because it has all that data. I can have it do the analysis. I can have it draw on the web and pull information. But you say, what should I invest in today? It's going to be challenged. Now, Bloomberg GPT, there's actually a Bloomberg Financial has their own query facilities. And I will say more and more of us are going to be accessing AI, not going into ChatGPT 3.5 or GPT-4, which is the proper names. ChatGPT is not 4. ChatGPT is 3.5, or in Cloud Anthropic, or U.com, or Meta's version, or Google's Alphabet's version. We're going to be going into Salesforce. We're going to be going into QuickBooks. We're going to be going into SaaS. We're going to be using computer tools that have AI built into them and generate everything. I'm going to talk about Microsoft Office Copilot, which is cool and powerful. There's some bugs in it, but it's actually a pretty generous offer. And here are some of the other players: Meta, Alphabet, Amazon, Anthropic, Apple, Salesforce, as Einstein. A couple of definitions. As we've said before, you probably heard it before, 60 years plus in the making. It's been around a long time. It is a word completion tool. It predicts the next word based on probabilities. So if I said to you, Chicken Little was right, the sky is, and when I asked this, one person said blue, another person said falling. That's probably the 80 to 90% response. It could say cloudy. So any of those are proper responses with certain degrees of probability. So it's generating the next word. It's a word generator. It's based on word patterns, and it's really quick. It simulates very, very human-like conversations. It's pretty cool. And the English is actually pretty good. It's actually very convincing. Because if you ask it a question, it comes back and says, oh yeah, I think here's a response. It is very logical, and the grammar is excellent, and it's there. Now, I will say GAI is not, it says artificial intelligence, but it's not intelligent. Dang it, it's a computer algorithm. It's computer generated. And it veers off course. That game of telephone I mentioned earlier, it can take those words and say, oh, let's go down this path. And then it goes way out in left field. It's a large language model, which means it uses a lot of input, and English speaking. By the way, I have a German colleague. She said, you know what my secret is? I'm using this effectively in Germany, in Deutschland. I will take a German query. I will translate it to English. I will ask the question in English in GPT-4. Then I will translate the result back to German. And she says, I get so much better results because all this is programmed in English. Not all, but the vast majority is programmed in English. So if you're asking it in its native tongue, of course, it's going to be much more intelligent and capable. Because when she was asking questions in German, she was getting limited scope responses. But when she converted it to translate to English and translate it back, way ahead of the game. It uses something called natural language processing, not neural linguistic programming. That's another NLP, but natural language processing, very conversational. And then it is enhanced reinforcement learning from human feedback. How do they do that? They were out in Africa and said, okay, here's a question. Here's 4 responses. Which of these is most appropriate, best grammar, best content? I say, oh, C. Okay, how about this one? Oh, B. How about this one? Oh, that one's C. And it goes right on down and it learns. It progresses as it goes. But I want to bring your attention, this is a fixed data set. It's not growing to the extent that you would think. Oh, it's on the web. Isn't everything on the web fair game? Well, it is with certain utilities or certain tools. Let's talk about 3.5 versus 4. As I mentioned before, ChatGPT 3.5, you all have free access to. GPT-4 is $20 a month. And frankly, if you use it more than 2 or 3 times a week, it is so well worth it. It has a lot of power to it. It gives better answers. It gives more thought and processing, has better guardrails and protection, and has more functionality and features. You can link a file. Here's a spreadsheet. Analyze a spreadsheet. Can't do that on 3.5. Take this URL, do a deeper dive, analyze the site. Oh, let me attach this PDF or this video. Give me a summary. Those are all functionalities in GPT-4. Generate images. Take my handwriting notes, take a picture of it, and summarize it. 3.5 cannot do that, but 4 can. So there's a lot of horsepower built into 4 that 3.5 doesn't have. Now, you can access the GPT-4 query side if you use Microsoft Bing chat. They were saying, yeah, Bing's going to replace Google, right? Not this week. But the idea is you can and are able to access GPT-4 content based on using the Bing chat feature and Bing Copilot that goes with that. So there's capabilities there. So let's talk about a couple more comparisons. You look at this chart, you say the blue is 3.5 and the green is GPT-4. By the way, the proper name is ChatGPT 3.5 and GPT-4 is proper name. Some people call it ChatGPT-4. That's not quite correct. But yeah, that's a technical thing. People know what you're talking about. The bar exam went from the 10th percentile correct to 90th percentile when you went to 4. By the way, it wouldn't pass the CPA exam with 3.5, but it will with 4. I'll show that in a minute. But GRE quantitative went from 25th percentile to 80th. GRE writing didn't change. Advanced placement calculus went from 7th to 59th. And if you're a wine connoisseur, an advanced sommelier exam, 46 to 77%. So it's pretty powerful, pretty cool. As I mentioned, the CPA exam can now be passed by GPT-4. It failed with 3.5. With advanced prompting, about 84%. Let me give you an example of what I do in my classroom. I do a You're the Auditor exam. And I say, okay, that's appropriate for accountants. I'll do a financial accounting. I've got a multiple choice test, and it might have 50 or 60 questions on it. And I'll say, here's the question. Here's the Chat GPT 3.5 answer. Then A, B, C, D. A, Chat GPT is correct, or B, C, or D. Alternative numbers are correct. I did not have to do any tweaking, but my score on average was a 46 to 54% based on the questions I asked and the answers I got. So I will tell my students, if you want to get a 50% on this exam, circle A, ChatGPT is right. If you want to do better, find the right answer and validate it and verify it. Again, it's not, it can sometimes not do multiplication very well. Might have the concepts down, but it can't crunch the numbers. So I'll give you one other secret that I don't tell my students. GPT-4 averages between an 80 and 84%. Because I was worried. I'll tell you, 2 weeks after ChatGPT came out, I went in and said, you know what? Let me take one of my accounting exams. And let me see, I'll plug in chug. I'll take the question, I'll pop it into ChatGPT 3.5, I'll generate an answer and determine if it's right. And it scored at 46%. The problem I had was the first 5 out of 6 questions it got right. I'm saying, dang, I'm never going to be able to do a take-home assessment. My students are going to cheat because they can, and they're going to get all this stuff right. The next 4 to 5 answers, it got wrong. And I was more worried because I know the structure, the logic, the English, the way it answered the questions, it was so logical. So I was worried when it gave me more wrong answers than right. But as I said, GPT-4 gets in between 80 and 84%, and my 46 to 54% was what I get on 3.5, and it does improve every day. It's going to be enhanced. One more comparison on GPT-4. This is a scaled, accurate representation of the volume of data in GPT-4 versus 3, not 3.5, but 3, 100 billion parameters. If you ever seen a teletype, good old days, GPT-4, when it answers like a teletype. GPT-3 and 3.5 is zips, real quick. But it's less data, less accurate, and not as powerful information. But GPT-4, as I mentioned, will recognize pictures, handwritten images, and translate, tables. And it will handle approximately 300 pages of input. That's as of last November. They upgraded it. It used to be about 50, 60 pages. Now it's over 300 pages approximately of input on GPT-4. So it has more capacity to remember stuff. But eventually it'll forget. If you're on page 400, it'll forget your name. It'll forget what it told you. But if you're on page 200, it remembers everything it told you. And it is safer, bigger guardrails. You might have heard of the Gartner hype cycle. It's almost like the adoption curve for technology or for any product life cycle. So technology trigger, that was back in November 30th, 2022. Peak of inflated expectations. Either the world's going to end or it's going to bake bread and solve every crisis known to people kind. The trough of disillusionment. Oh, it's not, it hallucinates. It's failing me. It's not giving me all the accurate answers I thought it would. Slope of enlightenment. Oh, I'm improving. I'm understanding what it can and can't do. Now the plateau of productivity says, okay, I can apply this, use the right tool for the right job. I'm not going to use a ball peen hammer when I need a claw hammer or a sledgehammer. Whatever it might be, I'm going to go in and figure out, okay, right tool, right job, understand its limitations. So I want to, in the chat, please let me know which platforms and all the above are you familiar with or I've heard of, come across. So if you've used A just for the ChatGPT environment, Bard was replaced by Gemini a few months ago, Alphabet Google folks. Microsoft Copilot, they add it's an additional $20 per person per month, but it will generate, you don't have to go in and say, you know what, let's go in and figure out what we're doing with a graph and chart or pivot tables. I want to go in and show me a chart that's effective to tell me about my sales growth. And it will create the chart for you. Okay. So we got a bunch of A's, open AIs. Oh, all of the above. Thank you, Derek. Copilot's really cool. Generate PowerPoint slides. There are tools out there. There's one called beautiful.ai that will generate a PowerPoint presentation, complete for you without you having digging around slides and create. I did not use that to create mine. I've tried some tools and some I like and some I don't. All the above except for Claude. By the way, Amazon pumped in a couple of $1 billion to Anthropic. So did Google. So both of those companies have endorsed Anthropic. One of the OpenAI original employees founded Claude. That's the one to watch. I really like Claude for a lot of applications. It does pretty good for reference checking. Thank you for the feedback. All right. So let's go ahead, and I've got a bunch of listing here. Best chat spot for 2024. Khan Academy has Khanmigo. There's a bunch of others out there. ChatSpot, Personal AI, Open Licensing. You can look at this at your leisure. I'm not going to spend a lot of time here. There's too much on the list, but they're all powerful, capable, and there's gobs and gobs of them. I also included here some links specifically if you want to go to Bing Chat or Gemini. I got to spell it. Claude 3, Claude Pro, U.com, Grammarly. I require all my students use Grammarly. I use Grammarly before I do a presentation, before I submit a paper. Jasper is good for in editorials, news release, publishing industry. Copy AI, Hemingway, Quillbot. There are a lot of cool tools out there. And there's professional at the bottom half and beginner or introductory at the top half. Dolly is the one by OpenAI. That's Dolly 3. But here's others. And you say, wait a minute, are we querying, just having a banter? We can create music. We can initiate writing. I'll tell you this book right here, Living Your Dream Career, 70-chapter book. I said, I'm pretty good at writing prompts. Can you generate me a 15-chapter book on the same topics, chapter by chapter by chapter? First of all, it couldn't count. It generated a 25-chapter book. Secondly, it was garbage. I would have been embarrassed to publish it because there's a lot of fluff. The web is at risk right now. Think of everybody that's out there creating an article that's publishing in a newsletter, a magazine. Sports Illustrated got slammed. They're publishing articles that are created by AI. I say, wait a minute, we created that by AI, but what validity does it have? Is it hallucinating? Is it real? Or is it just fluff pieces? So there are limitations to where it goes. Okay. Looks like we have another poll, so please do answer and make sure you get your CPE if you desire. And let's go ahead and next slide. All right. So I'm a real believer, and again, here's another Sam Altman quote. Yeah, and I like Sam. I respect Sam Altman. It will eclipse the agricultural revolution, the industrial revolution, the internet revolution, all put together. I mentioned earlier, I think it's bigger than the invention of fire, of written language, of oral language. It is going to change not only business and industry and careers as we know it, it's going to change life and society as we know it. So it has a lot of capability to evolve and to change. A couple of summary slides. Realistically, data set is from prior April 2023. It's pretty vanilla in its responses. I actually went in, I teach Sunday school. I volunteer here in Florence, South Carolina. And I asked it to produce a sermon, okay, an Old Testament sermon. And it actually didn't do a bad job, but it didn't have the heart and the soul. It lacked the authenticity, the morality. It didn't have the depth that I would be wanting to portray if I was making a sermon or a presentation. So it had its limitations. There are human biases. We're going to get to human biases. And by the way, we'll talk about, does AI lean to the right or lean to the left politically? And the short answer is, depending on the platform, yes. We'll see that in a minute. Human bias of inputs. It's based on human input. Do humans have biases? You know, the victors are the ones that write the history books, right? Do they have biases? Of course. Threat to academic integrity, and there's plagiarism a challenge, of course. Risk of jailbreaks. What's a jailbreak? Think of all the scams that are out there and the phishing scams. You know, and if you right now say, could you please create a phishing email? I'm trying to get the password from a large company and I'm sending an email to all their employees and I want them to give me their password. Create a phishing email that's going to have them click on opening whatever my malware is or whatever's going on. Now there's guardrails in there that says, we're not going to let you do that. Except if you say, well, I'm a cybersecurity professor and I'm looking for an example of a phishing email to show my students the power of convincing people to change, it will do that, or it has done that. I think that it's been adapted and it's caught that. Now it won't do that anymore. But people go around these and again, jailbreaks outside the bars and try to fool it to get it to do things it wasn't supposed to be doing or should be doing. And then the old questions of cheating or collaboration. They're trying to ban it. We'll talk about that in a second. It's great at summarizing. It's great as an idea source. Supports over 100 languages. And it can read current URLs like I demonstrated earlier. Rubrics, resumes, reflections, checklists, surveys, scripts. And you can customize the tone. Put this in a professional tone. Tell it like you would to a 6th grader. All those things. And every time you ask it a question, even if you ask the same question, it's going to give you a different answer because remember, it's a word generator. It takes the last word with a certain probability and generates the next word or phrase. Let's talk about personal identifiable information, PII. You don't want to put obvious account numbers, social security numbers, or identifiable data. You don't want to put client information on there or customer information in there that can be traced back to a customer. Samsung banned it. They banned AI for internal use. So did Goldman Sachs, so did Bank of America, so did Wells Fargo, Deutsche Bank. Why did Samsung do it? Well, think about it. If you went out and said, you know what, I'm the CEO of Samsung. I've got these 10 ideas for my strategic plan. Could you prioritize these, give exclamations, give information? And here I am, Dr. Scott, sitting in Florence, South Carolina. What might Samsung's strategic plan look like? And had the CEO not, done the details, I would get possibly his 10 strategic initiatives. And I could say, boy, that sounds like a pretty powerful offering. And I wouldn't know it was the CEO who actually did that, or the assistant to the CEO, or the C-suite staff, or whatever was supporting the CEO. The other liability potential issues, if you are wrong, not only is it reputational, and how do you ensure against AI answers that are bad? I mean, customer service, we're all starting to use customer service tools, and AI is generating answers to all kinds of questions. What happens if it gives bad information? Well, financial information, you're subject to lawsuit in a heartbeat. I don't have to tell you that. But the idea is thinking about how this can be twisted, turned, and even Stack Overflow, which is a site for programmers, and people pop code on there all the time. Hey, I developed this. A lot of people were using AI-generated code, which was fallacious, which had problems. I mentioned the school banning, and think about it. If we are banning it at the high school or college level, and we're expecting our graduates to be familiar with artificial intelligence tools, if they graduate high school, go to college and haven't used it before, they're at a disadvantage. If they go in the workforce, graduating college or high school, haven't used it, again, at disadvantage. So if we ban it at that level, bottom line is we as folks that are teaching others to use it in the corporate environment, in the educational environment, we need to embrace it, understand it, and teach differently. It's on us to communicate that differently, not on our students who are going to use it anyways. A couple of the tidbits. Are there risks? Oh, there are risks. Security. Who can access it? $20 a month. That sounds relatively expensive for a lot of people, but some people don't make 20 bucks a year. Job loss. Okay, is it going to affect jobs? It's going to rearrange the market. Bias, inequality, discrimination, all of the above. Those are things that really you want to be aware of. And bias creep, that can be evolved over time. Over reliance, model collapse, I was talking about all the junk that's going in Google searches. Internet could theoretically and possibly will collapse with all the junk that's going in there. Intellectual property, copyright issues, operational reputational risk, Dunning-Kruger effect. A novice will say, oh, this is right. Remember my 46% on the exam? Oh, but it sounded so logical. I'm gonna sign off. Okay. Black boxes, guardrails, there's some links on there for your review. And then the ethics. Careful about claiming work of AI as your own. Credit where credit is due. There are lots of folks that have been fired who claimed I said this and they didn't. Model bias and data bias. The data is the input data. Who put the input data? Vast majority are white, middle-class males. And we'll talk about that in a second. But the model itself has built-in biases depending on how the algorithms were created. And take responsibility. You're responsible for the output. You can't sue OpenAI saying, oh, they gave me some bad information. All right, someone did a search on me and they found that I was in prison in Australia. But I've never been in prison. I've never even been to Australia. But somebody made a judgment call based on output from AI and didn't hire you. Can you sue AI? Probably not. Can they sue you for not doing due diligence? Probably. Keep away from personal identifying information. We mentioned that. Environmental impact. Think of the energy consumption. Think of all the silicon that's being produced and all the chips that are being used. And careful of the unintended consequences. And then we got all kinds of biases. Longevity biases, anchoring bias, confirmation bias, regression fallacy. Yeah, I don't need to go into all the details, but if you want a list of biases, here's a cool list. So what did I say? This is a cool quote. A gentleman from India, Devansh, said, GPT is white, American, neurotypical, and mostly affluent. And I saw that quote and I said, yeah, you know what? Thinking about the biases, no wonder there are biases. And there's a URL link to that as well. And finally, political biases. Okay, OpenAI is left libertarian leaning, and Meta's Llama is right leaning and authoritarian. There's actually a paper out there. If you want to go to do dig deeper into this, you can read all about it. But that chart I thought was pretty revealing of the biases that are associated on the 4-quadrant models. So I have a question for you. In the chat, what is your level of fear of AI? A, B, C, D, or E. They're scared. Watch out, Skynet. Lots of fear, but I'm open-minded. Could be a game changer, some reservation. Embracing it, excited. Or jury's still out. You know, a lot of E's, it looks like, and a lot of C's. So, you know what? That's a healthy skepticism. Got some B's, lots of fear. And I get a couple of A's. Chicken Little, Skynet's coming. But think about it. It's a tool like any other. I'm not going to get into the gun debate, but words can be just as damaging. So, you know, or if they ban guns, are people going to use knives? Or if they ban knives, I mean, a knife can be used to cut butter or to stab. And AI can be used for nefarious purposes and false promulgation of information, of details, and the like. So I'm going to go ahead and one more Sam Altman quote, and then we're going to take a quick breather. Actually, 2 more slides. It would be ridiculous not to be worried, somewhat worried, optimistic, but we need to come together. Sam has been advocating for government engagement. This is unlike the Industrial Revolution in England, where there was no regulation and people were, you know, the sweatshops and working to the bone 7 days a week. I mean, the 40-hour work week was, you know, started with a 6-day work week, came down to a 5-day work week, and frankly is now evolving to a 4-day work week, which is likely to pick up a lot of steam. But there was no real regulation. Now, government, business, and people need to be balanced. I actually was presenting at a seminar. I was at a table and they said, okay, so who do you trust? You trust companies, business as a whole? You trust government? You trust the people? They said, oh, we trust government. I said, really? And we don't trust companies, corporations. I said, so which governments do you trust? Okay, federal, Texas, Florida, Massachusetts, Wisconsin, pick one. So there's a balance in all this. So there's room for all of us to share and be part of that. Final slide, but I'm gonna take a 5-minute Q&A session right now. I know we'll open it up in the end and then we'll talk about prompting. But the genie's out of the bottle. A colleague of mine, Jeremy Scheffling, he's a sharp guy, came out in LinkedIn, Microsoft, it's now at Khan Academy. ABCs, accuracy, bias, and confidentiality. And I liked his summary. Is it accurate? Is it hallucinating? Is it biased? Short answer is yes. So the corollary is, how is it biased? And let's talk confidentiality. How do we keep information confidential? By the way, with 4, you can say, don't use my data in your research. Don't take my data and apply it. And there are flags and setup things you can do. So I'm going to exit out of the slideshow for a minute. And I'm going to ask you come on screen. Can you turn your cameras on? I like seeing the faces of folks that I get to talk to, and I appreciate that. But I'm just going to open the floor for a brief 5 minutes. I know we're doing Q&A at the end as well. But I want to gauge where you're at, what questions you have, things that holes and gaps. We're going to go into prompt engineering, and we're going to demonstrate some ideas of prompting and tools and techniques to do that, and some of the methodologies that I've created and use to generate effective prompts. But I want to open the floor, and you can put it in the chat. You also have the capability to come off mute. I would welcome your feedback. This session, again, is for you. I know this is a marathon. I've been covering a lot of stuff real quick, a lot of information. And again, some of you have some pretty good experience. Hopefully you're getting value. The newer folks, you can review this at your leisure. You have the URL and the barcode, the QR code that I will let you, I'll show it to you again before the end of today. But I want to just gauge feedback. And in the chat, how would you rate the session so far? Just give me an A, B, C, D, or F. Just go ahead and rate it as an A, B, C, D, or F. And tell me what you think of so far, the environment, the experience that you're gaining or knowledge. And if there's anything else you want to make sure I cover in the next 45 minutes. Because again, I'm a native Bostonian. I talk fast, right? But being able to communicate and get the points across, well, Ace, thank you. Well, I'm glad you're finding value. But I also want to open it up and get your feedback. If there's anything that you think is missing or that you think would be of value to do a deeper dive. And then we'll get into prompting, because prompting is the power. Prompting is the heart and soul. How you interact, how you communicate is real important. Wow, I haven't seen anything below an A, so I'm honored and appreciative. Thank you. Any questions come to mind? I know you're feeling so overwhelmed. You got so much information, so much cool stuff, but really powerful stuff. Thoughts or concerns? I tell you what, give me in the chat one thing you picked up that said, oh, wow, this is kind of surprising. Okay, we have another poll question too, by the way. But in the chat, please enter one tidbit or piece of valuable information that is valuable to you, or that you may have been surprised by, or you want a deeper dive. Is there a blocker in the advanced of AI in producing chips? Ooh, that's a great question. I don't know. I think the chip itself is more processing power. It's the algorithms and how they use the chips. And like I say, the 200 chip from NVIDIA has a bunch of horsepower built into it. They're talking about biological chips, not just silicon chips coming out. The 100 series NVIDIA chip is pretty powerful as it is. China introduced its own cheap chip. So they've been having trouble getting our chips, as a lot of people are having trouble getting our chips. So hopefully that answers the question to some extent. But an AI blocker, I don't know. It's whatever you program. You can almost program whatever you want to do that. Good question. Other comments or questions? Anything else that you picked up from the presentation that you found, maybe any particular application jumped out at you, said, I'm going to be able to use this, or I want to learn to use this? Anything that you saw that says, oh, I mean, I can ask questions like these, and it's going to give me answers. It's going to help my kids in the career path and revise their resume. One of the things I talked about is you ask it a question, it's going to give you an answer. If you say, give me a resume, it's going to give you a resume. But if you say, here's my qualifications, here's my job description, here's my job history, now can you produce a resume? You're going to get so much better output. So the function of how you ask it questions, of how you generate input, is going to be the power of the tool and what it can do. Okay, sounds like you've been getting pretty complete information. I think, as I say, thank you. It sounds like you're gaining value. So I'm going to continue on the presentation. And we're going to jump in a little bit, start talking about follow the money. Billions are being poured into this. And I've got just a couple of slides that will just highlight that. PwC, $1 billion, 1.4 from my alma mater, EY, Accenture, 3 billion, KPMG, 2 billion, JP Morgan, another billion. And some of the players down there, market caps valued by AI. There's some AI funds you can specifically invest, AI mutual funds if you want. Some people are saying AI is overpriced right now. Some people are saying it's undervalued because it's the future. I'm not going to weigh in because I don't want to get sued. IBM, $200 billion. Microsoft, over 13 billion. They put 10 billion in to own half of OpenAI. Meta, Facebook, 30 billion. Alphabet, Google. So billions are being invested. So let's talk about the career space, and then we'll get to prompting. I'm a believer. It's not AI that's going to take your job. It's someone who knows how to use it just might. I was at a conference. I was talking to a colleague. It was an accounting conference, but he was a marketing guy. And he said, you know what? There are two of us that are doing the marketing. I use AI. My colleague doesn't. What has happened? My colleague who doesn't use AI got fired. And I'm doing so much more, even with them not there, because I'm using AI and I've got the skill set to do it. It will enhance what you do. I tell you, we know accountants. 100 years ago, it took 30, 40 accountants to run a 100-person firm. 15, 20 years ago, you were down to 10 accountants for a 100-person firm. Now you can get away with 1.5 accountants for a 100-person firm. Does that mean there's a glut of accountants looking for jobs that can't find positions because there's too many out there? Definitely not. It is a factor that the accountants are now being able to do more interesting things, become more part of the C-suite, strategic planning, evaluation. We've got a shortage of accountants, I think you probably realize, in the pipeline, both at the staff level and at the intermediate levels. I'm executive director, founding executive director for a nonprofit called TalentX Global that we're addressing that. But the tools are, we are short of accountants as we speak. I thought this was interesting. 98% of companies hiring entry-level candidates, high school, college grads, require ChatGPT experience for some positions. And if they're banning it in the schools, what are the odds of getting it? This was a third survey of 1,000 hiring managers. Okay. This one I contest. I disagree with strongly, but I'm putting it here, just putting it on the table because that's a popular perception. 9 in 10 hiring managers say ChatGPT experience can be more valuable than a college degree. By the way, the two top things looked for by employers. Now, technical skills are good, communication skills are good. The two top things looked for by employers are critical thinking and creativity. Really? What about this other stuff? Yeah, the other stuff's important. Teamwork, being able to do whatever. But critical thinking and creativity. Where are you going to get the critical thinking skills? And where are you going to develop creativity skills? I'm an advocate for the liberal arts as well as accounting education. I teach business. That's what I teach. That's what my doctorate's in. But liberal arts does give you creative thought and multiple perspectives. So does multilingual learning too, isn't it? But you get the idea saying, how are you going to learn to prompt without a college degree? You could prompt. You can ask some pretty basic and simple questions. I will confess, I was teaching college I've been a full-time academic 17 years, been entrepreneurial, had a bunch of businesses, had a restaurant, had a variety of things I've done. I've sold cars and vacuum cleaners. But the experience I've had until I got my doctorate, I didn't realize the depth of research and capability. I mean, if you grow or die, learn or die, I'm learning, we're all learning every day, and you're here to learn. So I'm glad you're here. So let's get into prompting. It is all about the prompt. And this is a little bit sexist, but this came out in the 60s. Naguib Mahfouz, Nobel laureate, said, "You can tell whether a man is clever by his questions, you can tell whether a man, by his answers, I blew it. You can tell whether a man is clever by his answers, you can tell whether a man is wise by his questions." I love folks that ask questions, especially in the classroom, because if they're asking a question, probably their colleagues and other students have similar questions. But I'm going to ask you a question. Andrej Karpathy, former chief of AI at Tesla. Yeah, he's now at OpenAI. He had a statement. He said the hottest new programming environment language is what? Well, I'm going to just go through a couple of slides pretty quickly. And Fortran, COBOL, I learned Fortran way back when. I was in the Navy, vet, and COBOL was developed up in the Navy. VL, RPG, BASIC, C, SQL. Those are all good languages. Python, Visual Basic, R, J, Java. Cool stuff. Okay. And then we're looking and saying, well, C++ and Visual Basic applications. Yeah, those are all good languages. Excel, Tableau. Okay, now we're talking. Power BI, SAS, Alteryx, Qlik, XBRL, and Azure out of Microsoft, Amazon Web Services. Those are all good. By the way, if I had students in college right now, and my kids are all past college, I'd be recommending, I still recommend it anyway, SQL, R, and Python. I'd say Python is the #1 language to learn right now. If you're looking to learn a programming language, structured query language, SQL is also valuable, as is R, and statistical analysis. But Python is the gold standard, but that's not the answer either. What's the hottest new programming environment or language? Can anybody guess in the chat? Anybody want to take a gander at what that language might be? I'll give you 3 seconds, 4 seconds to respond. 1, 2, 3. English. Wait a minute. What do you mean programming in English? That's exactly what you're doing when you're making a query, when you're generating a prompt, when you're asking questions. English is the language of choice. So I've got some summaries here. I'll get to my methodologies and a structure that you might like. And I do workshops on this stuff too. But know your why. And if you're Simon Sinek fan, he's got some really good videos on why. Clarity is key and more is better. If you should say, give me some ideas for a title about a book on financial analysis and financial reporting, it'll give you some ideas. But give me an idea on a book on financial reporting that dives into various types of analyses and what effectiveness of analyzing big data and the tools that people use. That's a better prompt. And a couple of summary things: role experience, set a persona, let AI question you. Number 2, I'm going to highlight that. That's part of my own methodology. You can have it ask you questions. And you'll see that demonstrated momentarily when I do. I've got an example that's pretty, I think is pretty high power. Give you an idea of what a $20,000 consulting engagement might look like in about less than an hour and a half. Knowledge augmentation, output format. You tell it what you want. Chain of thought processing. That is a tool, and that's a little bit more advanced for some of you that are newer. But if you say solve this problem, it'll solve the problem. It may not give you a good answer and might hallucinate. But if you say, show me step by step, add that to your prompt, it'll take step 1, step 2, step 3, and give you a better answer. Because remember, it's a chain of thought processing that it goes through and says, okay, word generator, here, I generate some words. I'm going to generate some more words. I'm going to generate some more words. And as it goes through that flow, it starts here and does not pass go, do not collect 200. If it jumps to the end, it might miss some things and jump out as a step. Confirm writing style and refine. I love this Gandhi quote. The power to question is the basis of all human progress. And that's exactly what we're doing. We're questioning. Set the experience. So you're a prompt engineer, you're an interviewer, you're a travel guide. You say, I'm going to Spain to Madrid. Find me, give me an agenda. I like to eat. I like art museums. And I like to experience the culture. Propose a schedule, an itinerary for me, Monday through Saturday, for my trip to Madrid. It'll propose restaurants. It'll propose museums. and then you can say, well, can you map it out so I don't have to walk too much? Or easy access to public transportation or whatever else. The key here is be careful of hallucinations. It might make up addresses. It might make up restaurant names and museum names. It might say, you know what, this is close, but it's not really close. So again, take it with a grain of salt. But if you're going to Madrid or in Paris, you know, hit the Louvre, hit Notre Dame, hit whatever I want to hit, you're going to be able to let it tell you the things it could and would should do. You're a financial analyst. You're an expert with X years of experience. You're a stand-up comedian. You're a dietitian. You're a lawyer. You're a drunk. Okay, won't say that in the same breath, sorry. Style, set the tone. Ironic, optimistic, pessimistic, confident, cynical, empathetic. These are just some adjective ideas you can use in your prompts. In the style of the Old Testament, in the style of James Clavell, in the style of any guru of the modern age. Now you can go Dale Carnegie historically, or you can go back and say, yeah, I want to get somebody that's just published a book, Stephen Covey, 7 Habits, whatever it might be. Style of Dr. Seuss, I told you that was one of my favorites. Be creative, be critical. And again, I'm going to go through some examples momentarily. Output format. I want a table, I want a list, give me 3 paragraphs. Sometimes it'll give you 4 or 5 or just 1. Be careful when it says word counts, it can't count sometimes. But these are all kinds of things you can ask, and you can have it reprompt or regenerate every time. I have colleagues that will, by habit, regenerate the same question 3 times. Or they'll use 2 other platforms in addition to GPT-4. They'll use Claude and they'll use Gemini. I'm not a big fan of Gemini personally. I am a fan of Claude, and I am a fan of GPT-4 personally, because I've used a lot of them and they give me the best results. Some more prompting tips: begin with the end in mind, clear question, good grammar. By the way, it's sensitive to how you ask it questions. Sentiment analysis. This is kind of cool. This is interesting. It is sensitive to your tone and your expectations. If you're polite, could you please tell me about? Of course. By the way, if I see the word certainly one more time out of AI, which I know I will, I react accordingly because it likes the word certainly. And by the way, you can't tell if something's AI generated or not. I challenge you to tell. OpenAI's GPT 3.5 and 4, they had a detector to determine if it was AI, if things were AI generated. It was right about 30% of the time. 2 out of 3 times it was wrong. There was an academic in Texas who flunked half his class because this is a graduating class. He flunked half his class when he said, you guys are cheating. You're using AI. I told you not to. How did he validate or verify they were cheating? He said, GPT-4, here's content that was generated by my student. Was this generated by you or was this generated by them? And it said, oh, I generated that. AI generated that. Really? Well, the reality was it hallucinated. It was wrong. It didn't generate it. The students were actually not using it, or most of them. It delayed graduation for a number of students. It delayed job entry, and some people lost their jobs because they were accused of cheating and not graduating. It was pretty major stuff. So let's talk about a couple of methodologies. I got 2 methods. The Dr. Scott D method, I didn't have to copyright that one, and the R*Q method. I'm going to spend, the Dr. Scott D I do more in workshops, but the R*Q is a little bit more general and pretty quicker to be aware of. You might have heard of R*, role, STAR method in interviews. What's the situation? What's the task? What's the action? What's the result? What you did when you're doing an interview? I modified to the R*Q method. And if you're a rock Nickelback fan, you probably heard the song Rockstar. Yeah. Dr. Ski, define your objective before you type your first one. It's like a spreadsheet. Sketch out what your spreadsheet's going to look like before you even start typing in formulas. What's the role, experience, background of whoever it is? Specify the objective and the goal. Clarify, give as much detail, paragraphs, brochures, information, highlights, flyers. If you can show sample of his output, show sample outputs, even better. Here's how I want it to look, something like this. Set the tone or style. And who's my target audience? Who's this going to be going out to? Bonus dialogue means it's a conversation. You can take a deeper vibe, Q&A, ask questions. But now let's talk about the R-star. Again, from a career service area, situation, task, action, result. I like the CAR method better. In an interview, what's the challenge? What's the action? What's the result? S and T are a little bit long-winded. I like, here's the challenge, here's the challenge, here's the problem, here's the need, here's what we did, and here's the result. So I like the CAR method, but STAR is pretty mainstream. But the role and add the questions at the end. Role, situation, task, action, result. Question where you ask more what it needs to answer your questions. I did that. I went in ahead and I said, okay, I quick PT story, physical therapy. I tore my lateral meniscus 20 years ago playing tennis. I've been babying it ever since, but I finally went to an orthopedic and said, oh, you should be able to go to a PT and you should be able to play tennis and ski and whatever else you want to do from here on out. Because I tried playing tennis after 20 years and my knee ballooned up again. By the way, I learned pickleball, which was cool. And the guy I was playing with had some tennis racks that I haven't played for 20 years. Can we play? And I won 7-5, which was pretty cool. And then the next day, my knee paid for it. Anyways, so I went to the orthopedic. He said, okay, here's PT. So I went in and said, okay, here's a situation. I'm going to be visiting a PT. What are your suggestions? But before you answer, what questions do you have of me? This is a power prompting technique. What can you ask me that you will be better answer to better answer your question? Okay, how old are you? What were the symptoms? What was the result? Are there any other medical conditions? Anything else to be aware of? And it came up with a plan, an 8-week plan, and said here, and I asked it for a timetable, pretty good prompt. And after I answered all the questions, it came up with a plan. I brought it to the physical therapist, the owner of the clinic. And he looked at that and he said, this is amazing. 90+% accurate. So I said, are you worried? Is it going to take your job? He goes, I'm not worried. Because frankly, when I looked at it, there were some exercises on there. I never even recognized the names of them. There were some activities that they would do. And he was pretty talented. He's a sharp guy. But he showed to his staff who were all doing these too. So this is pretty powerful and amazing stuff. But here's a background query. So this is not using the R-star method. I'm going to jump to R-star right after this next slide. But I'm going to explore some background material for data analytics and big data. So I said, you know what? List the top 10 vendors of big data and data analytics systems in the financial services industry and their annual sales. Okay. I'm going to go here. I'm going to jump into the response to this. That was a simple 1-sentence query. And from that general background query, top 10 vendors, IBM, product, SaaS, product, SAP, Oracle, Amazon, Microsoft, Tableau, Amazon, Google, Teradata, Snowflake. Annual sales it did not give me. Okay. So this is the query just from that first question. Now I've got an R-star query here. It's about a paragraph long, and I'm going to go through individually, screen by screen, so you can see what went into that query. And it's, again, this gives you a little more advanced query formatting. But we'll use R-star. We'll start with the role. Who do we emulate? You're a CFO with over 20 years of experience in the financial service industry, seeking to modernize your environment with the latest data analytic tools to help you manage your business. Situation, here's the S in R-star. Relate to system in the current environment. Your financial team is seeking to replace its current outdated system based on Excel with modern and effective tools to analyze customer and market data. Again, give as much information as you can. What's the task? You need to come up with a plan for researching, selecting, and ultimately implementing a system that would provide the tools to best manage our business, provide reports to related departments, and be able to handle anticipated growth exceeding 20% per year. Action, prepare a request for document, set of evaluation criteria, appropriate vendors to solicit quotes from, gather contact information, yada, yada. What are the results? Here's the R, this is R-star. We also want a selection matrix design and table form of desirable features that we should be seeking within the system. Both financial and time budgets should also be prepared. Seek to develop this proposal over a 4-month period, select based on a matrix as previously developed, and have a detailed implementation plan. Finally, here's the question. Have the model question you. You can ask it all kinds of questions. It'll give you all kinds of answers. But the short question here, what additional questions do you have so that you may best prepare the necessary documents to serve our needs? So here we have that whole query. And again, it was summarized section by section. You're a CFO with over 20 years experience, yada, yada. What questions do you have so that you may best prepare the necessary documents to meet our needs? And then the key here is follow-up. Once you generate a response, don't just say thank you, bye. Have the dialogue. So let me go through with you right now and show you in a little bit more detail that same query, the responses we got, or I got. So here's that whole query. And now the response is the A. I have a Q for query in bold, and then I have the A for answer ChatGPT. To develop the comprehensive documents and plans required for your project, I need to clarify a few points to tailor the approach effectively. Here are some questions. Help you refine. Current system details, integration requirements, specific functional requirements, user access considerations, growth stability, vendor specifics, budget resource, timeline flexibility. So this is just questioning me. It's making me do my homework if I understand what the environment is. So it says, answer the question will help me drafting a precise RFP, designing a detailed selection matrix, and planning an efficient timeline. Just that response. Just think about how long it would take to you to draft a response. If you said to a subordinate, here, what questions do you want from me? And they said, here, I got all these questions for you. So please see, and my query, please see answer to your question below in uppercase. So here's it. It said, what are the specific limitations? That's cut and pasted. Excel has been a powerful tool, but it's become unwieldy, and the intricacies of connecting multiple spreadsheets. Our users are fairly talented in its use, but they are not programmers. Multiple errors have been introduced. It's taken away from the system's effectiveness. Data cleansing issues are also a challenge. Are there any specific analyses or reports? We seek to analyze customer data, market trends, and investment recommendations. Then we have Oracle Financials, variety of investment analysis tools. What tools are you using? So these are my answers all in uppercase. Real-time analysis and data analytics, descriptive analytics, diagnostic analytics, and predictive analytics. What specific regulatory compliance issues do we need to worry about? We're heavily regulated. How many users? We got over 70,000 employees, but 5 to 10% will be accessing regularly. As a large company, you have many layers for security and access, but look to your recommendations, how to best structure. Growth. Needs system to handle multiple currencies and conversions. I can spell federal government, I'd put it a little bit better off. Federal government initiatives, cryptocurrencies, whatever it might be. Primary language English, but we have European offices, so French and German, and some other European languages would be appropriate. Cloud-based, there's our budget, training and support, operations. Timing is flexible. If I can spell implementation again. Yeah, my fingers did the walking. Resource successfully measured on time, on budget, and effective. And very close long-term vendor relationship. They're going to have offices on our site. Well-developed training tools. There we go. So based on the detailed information provided, here's what we're going to structure. RFP, summary, objective. By the way, it's going to remember number 2. Give me more details on number 2. You don't have to say, give me more details on project objectives. But we'll see some of that dialogue. Technical requirements, user access management, budget and resources, implementation, support, service level agreements, proposals to mission guidelines, evaluate vendor experience reliability, system capability, scalability, cost effectiveness and support and training, implementation prep phase, selection phase, implementation phase, post-implementation support, and then success. Complete the project, timeline, budget. Okay. My turn. Please provide a detailed timeline on the phases in a table format. Oh, well, the prep phase, you're going to get the team together. Start, we got 2 weeks to do that. 4 weeks to develop and finalize the RFP, distribute the RFP to selected vendors. And then this timeline up to 46 weeks. Selection phase, receive proposals, yada, yada. By the way, you can get a proposal and say, evaluate this proposal. Or you can manually do that. You can have your own matrix to evaluate, or you can let AI do some of the grunt work for you. All right. So address the needs of the 3 items in the preparation phase. Could have said phase 2 and details and paragraph from how to execute. Oh. Formation of the project team. Assemble the right team, IT department, finance department, data analysts and users. Additional appointing a project manager oversees project ensures milestones are met is crucial. Managers should possess strong organizational and communication skills to effectively coordinate between different teams and stakeholders, as well as external vendors. Even just writing that one paragraph probably would have taken 15 minutes. Development and finalization of the RFP. Okay. Distribute vendors. Please prepare a sample RFP and highlight areas that we will need to do additional research to complete a detailed RFP. Introduction, scope, service requirements, deliverables, vendor qualifications, proposal, evaluation, budget and pricing, constraint teams, and appendices, areas needed. So you actually have access to that document. You can see the power of the query, of the prompt, of asking the right questions, giving it enough detail, and being in a position to say, oh, these are some interesting answers. I disagree with this, and I've done this before, but I agree with that. Can you elaborate on this? Or can you provide less detail on this? Can you include the customer name, the client name, the vendor name as part of your response? Can you add emojis? Can you go ahead and prepare and generate an image, a logo, a tagline, or a summary email that's going to go out to, or a letter that's going out as an RFP, request for proposal from our vendors? It can do all this work for you, and you can take advantage of what it has to offer. Pretty powerful stuff. Pretty amazing stuff. All right, I'm going to share with you a few more screens worth of information that you will get access to. And let's go back to our presentation. The tiny URL, Fidelity AI RFP that you have right there. I love tiny URLs. We can actually put the URL names in English without having to do anything fancy. All right. A couple of present and future trends. All right. There's some terminology out here you probably recognize, and maybe some you don't. We talk about cloud computing, everything stored in the cloud. Our RFP, we wanted to be in the cloud too. Some people like the control and limited access. Others say it only makes sense. Folks like QuickBooks are discontinuing their local version of their QuickBooks accounting software in favor of the cloud. One is they can charge $15 to $50 a month. It's recurring revenue. But the other is that's worth it to me if I don't have to hire a computer tech to do upgrades and revisions. I had a computer consultancy. I was at Grant Thornton as an advisory consultant at one point, and then I had my own consultancy. And give me a C prompt, I was happy. But a lot of folks internally when they had problems, I had to go out there and work on their systems, not remotely. If we can handle all the backup remotely and everything in the cloud, it saves a bunch of money, even if I have to pay $50 or $100. Multi-cloud, hybrid cloud, super cloud, sky computing. Bernard Mars is a pretty sharp guy, futurist. Then some other technologies, Web 3.0, blockchain, fourth industrial revolution, the fifth industrial revolution. We talked AI, machine language, natural language processing, robotic process automation, bots and robotics. The Boston Dynamics, you've seen some of the videos of what they do with their bots and flips, and we're pretty powerful. And they just went from hydraulics to all electric for their robots, which gives them 360 capability and a whole bunch of other capacities that hydraulics have limitations. I don't know if they're going to do that to my airplanes and put them all electronics without hydraulics, but I don't want to hold my breath on that one. AI intelligence to pervasive intelligence, and AGI, artificial general intelligence. Before I get to questions, Q&A, I'm going to just go through a couple of, I've got about 7 more slides. I just want to do a show and tell of what's here. Contact information, again, in case you came late, the tinyurl.com/Fidelity AI workshop is this presentation in its entirety. You also have access to a QR code, which will also take you to the presentation if you don't want to bother typing. I gave you my personal email address. I'm relocating from my academic position as we speak to another position. But 608-446-1000, you can text. I tell my colleagues, friends, 24/7, because my phone sits in my office when it's charging at night because I don't take it to bed. Unlike a lot of my folks that I know, and like my kids who are in arm's reach, some even have it in their bed. Got a career capsule newsletter you're welcome to subscribe to in the career space. And I do give a lifetime warranty, and my LinkedIn address is there. But a couple other tidbits, acronyms of interest. You might, some abbreviations. Terms of interest might be of use to you. Q-Star. OpenAI, there's a big debacle when Sam Altman was fired and then reinstated, and they said Q-Star might have been one of the reasons. There were some other reasons, but we can talk about that someday if you want. Let me give Copilot by Microsoft a byline. In its current form, it is limited. It is not all I would like it to be, but they've opened it up. It used to be just for companies over 300 persons. They would charge, in addition to your Microsoft Office license, $20 per person per license per month. Now they've opened up to SMBs, small and medium-sized businesses, similar price tag. But as I said, you can generate a PowerPoint presentation, generate emails, summarize, analyze, spreadsheets, database stuff. It leaves a little bit to be desired in its current form, but I have no doubt it's going to improve greatly. And there's some more details that talk about that. Some warnings. The journey is the reward, but be very, very, very careful of hallucinations. If it doesn't sound practical or right, you need to validate, verify, because it's probably not right. Inputs do determine your outputs. Know your why. Why am I doing this? What the heck's going on? It's a conversation. It's a dialogue. But you need to take responsibility for the ultimate results. Okay? There's some more prompting resources available to you, lots of links, additional tools if you want to access them. And the final slide here are some newsletters that you might find of interest, of worth, of value. So I'm going to go back to 2 slides. This one with the tiny URL and the QR code. I'll give you another 5 or 10 seconds to make sure you have access to that and all these slides and all these linkages. And we're on the 50-minute mark, 11:50, and I value your time. We have one more poll question, I believe. But if you have questions, dreams, aspirations, phantasmagorias is a word I really like. You go wordsmithing, we can have a good time. Hopes, dreams, ideals, philosophies, directions, concerns. I'm going to open the floor for your questions and your needs. You're welcome to type in the chat. You're welcome to come off mute. I hope nobody had a chance to fall asleep yet. But I think there's a lot of interesting information that hopefully you gained value from, gained insight from. And I do want to thank you for your time, your investment in your own career, in your own professional development, because I'm from the grow or die philosophy. It's all about lifelong learning. To me, that's why I got a master's in education 8 years ago, 10 years ago. That's why the doctorate came out about 5 years ago. And I'm pursuing my CMA certification as well. In a CPA, I have a bunch of other certifications to go with that. But I open the floor. I welcome you coming on camera. I thank you for your time, and I want to make sure. And I will put, just as an aside, my LinkedIn address. If anybody wants to connect, you're welcome to in the chat. But are there comments, thoughts, questions, dreams, needs, desires, wants, or things that you would like a little bit more information about, or something to talk about? Take a sip of water while I let you do that. Couldn't have been that complete.
Well, excellent. I think we've covered it all. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Dr. Scott.
Well, Liz, a pleasure. I'm glad to be here and thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. And like I said earlier, if anyone has any questions about the CPE, just please feel free to reach out to me at the Mass CPAs. Otherwise, you should see those certificates in your individual emails within the next week or two. And also keep an eye out for that survey, please. Thank you so much, everyone. I hope you have a wonderful day. And thank you so much, Dr. Scott.
The honor was mine. Thank you.